Okay. Now this is John, and today we have Laurel Federbush in the studio, and you never know where you're going to be coming from. You had a book on, a flat Earth theory a couple months ago, and today we're talking about your newest book, The Love and Sex Life of Aromantic Asexual by Laurel Federbush. So I think that's got to be controversial, but because nowadays it's like basically, since the 70s, basically the whole idea about sexuality is more is better. and that's obvious. I mean, we've all known people who have basically either they don't talk about their love life, their sexual life, their sexual exploits for one reason or another. It might be because they're just shy individuals, but you see this as a lifestyle. And I mean, you've obviously done research. You wrote a book. So what's the book about? We'll talk about that. There's a lot of stuff. I think this is an interesting topic because asexuality basically is, most people would say that's, not being lucky or being too timid. Or how do you see it? How do you see being asexual?
Well, this book isn't like a scholarly research book. This is just a book based on me and my, my own personal experiences and feelings. And asexuality is something that I only discovered like within the last month or so. This might be something that a lot of you have known about for a long time. I think I first heard the term, when I was saying something about myself, they asked, "Are you asexual?" And I said no, because I thought asexual meant you just didn't have any sexual feelings whatsoever, or something like that. So that didn't describe me. So I just never really thought about it again. And I'm not really sure. I don't remember exactly what recently made me look into it, but it might have been Caitlyn Jenner on television being interviewed, said something about that at this point in her life she's asexual or something like that. That might have been what it was, and I might have looked it up from that interview, and I don't even remember what the first article was or what made me whatever it was. I was just reading about it and I thought, that's me. And the thing that was like kind of a revelation about it was that I had never thought of it as actually being anything. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I just thought I was broken or dysfunctional. I thought, maybe whatever experiences I had, as a kid or something had somehow traumatized me in a way that was, for whatever reason, maybe I just never developed properly, and so I just thought there was something wrong with me, and it was just like, no, this is a legitimate sexual orientation. That right now it's considered a sexual orientation. So I don't know, that might be something people dispute, but it's like any other orientation, like LGBT, there would be A for asexual. So I guess that's what it is.
It's like I don't know being asexual though would be some people say the reason why they have to come out so vehemently for this, the gay rights and for equal status of marriage and all that, is because homosexuality and lesbianism has been so either marginalized or villainized, and basically I see they're right. I mean, it's obvious. When years ago somebody'd come home and tell their mother or father they're gay or a lesbian, that was a sign. Basically, it was like black crepes, and what did we do? How did we create this? What did we do wrong? And I think now there's kind of with the research and both the more kind of the loosening of of what they used to call the sexual mores, that's been expanded. The sexuality has been basically not as, I always see sexuality as basically been used as a form of, has been utilized by authority, governments, whatever, as a way of marginalizing a portion of the population, like it was for religion, it was for anything else. It was always a way of marginalizing or control. And so you might have, there's, both Judaism and Christianity had prohibitions against homosexual behavior. Now that's being challenged. But do you see, in your initial stages, do you see that asexuals were people who are, have faced some kind of form of persecution or maybe a misunderstanding, or?
I think right now it's just sort of being talked about, so probably we don't really know all the stories but people in their own lives, you know, it can be just very subtle things, like just feeling like you're not measuring up to people's expectations of you, you know, why you're not married yet, why you don't have kids, you're just not fitting in. I guess for me that's sort of what it is, like it's just, you know, why are you not fitting in with what everyone else is doing? And, you know, I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm an artist, you know, I play the harp, you know, maybe it's just me being a musician, and maybe that's my type, so that's why I'm not fitting into the role of being a wife and mother. But what you know, I didn't think of it as being in terms of asexual yet, but I mean, some people might really be trapped in, you know, unhappy situations where they're trying to live out society's role for them and not, you know, but not really living their true self, so they're making people in their lives unhappy. I don't really know. I mean, it's possible that some people who are, I think men have a harder time often if they don't fit into society's role of what their sexuality should be. So probably in the same way that gay men have been persecuted, I would suspect that you know, that like asexuals, you know, maybe people suspect them of being gay or something like that, or just think they're weird. So that I would suspect that some of them are probably persecuted or just ridiculed or treated badly. And with women, you know, just I guess old maids are always looked down on, and we've talked about, I'm Jewish, and a lot of the traditional Jewish literature, well, there's something about the woman of valor, and a lot of people, you know, feminists or, you know, just more modern people sometimes have a problem with that, because it's, you know, you're a woman of valor if you fit this certain role, and, you know, well, what if you don't fit that role? And for me, it's, and you know, I think it's a beautiful poem, this woman of valor thing, but I was looking at it and it's like, it's all about how you're pleasing your husband and raising your kids well, and it's like, well, if you don't have a husband or kids, then are you anything? So I don't know if that answered the question or not.
But obviously got you thinking. You wrote a book about it. I mean, it's like you really, now for the book, did you do a lot of research and like no?
Well, I mean, I sort of did research into myself. I just thought that we should be getting our stories out there. And I was just thinking about, well, what is it about me that makes me feel like I'm not fitting in with, you know, whatever we're told about what love or sexuality is supposed to be, that, you know, that's not quite what it is for some of us. So I just wrote a book about what it is to me based on my own subjective personal experiences. And I think as more of us do that, more of us who consider ourselves asexual will get a better understanding of what it is. Like what I wrote in my book, someone else who was an asexual might say, oh, that's not at all true of me. Actually, I was reading, someone wrote a Goodreads review of my book. I was just looking it up online to see, whatever. I was actually surprised that someone wrote a book of it, or a review of it already. And one of their criticisms of the book was that it was too short. You know, it is a very short book. It's written basically sort of like a little bit like a children's book, but for adults. It's like I mean, not that it's for children, but in the sense of it being like a short book that creates just a sketch of an idea. It's like you know, big print and not very many words in it, but it's just you know, a very short book. I'll show you. You know, that gives you, it's, you know, this thick. That gives you kind of an introduction about something, or and what was I? Yeah. So what. You know, so she said it was too short, but she also said that she didn't agree with me about everything, and I wasn't really sure what there was to agree or disagree with, because I'm just writing about my experiences. So I don't know, but anyway, for whatever reason, different people, of course, have different life experiences, and I'm in some internet groups about asexuality, and you know, some of the people's things that they post in the internet group, but the Facebook group, I can really relate to, and some of it I can't relate to at all, and I can't believe I'm in the same group with someone who, you know, who's, you know, is feeling that way or something like that. But it's you know, but I guess it's like if you had heterosexuals or homosexuals or, you know, transgender people, any group that you're going to lump together as one big group, there's going to be a wide variety of different experiences.
Yeah, see, I was going to say, because I mean, I know people are asexual because a lot like you were alluding to, or just a few seconds ago, is about, you know, you're an artist, and, you know, and a lot of people I know were involved in their work, their careers. I mean, they were like, they had jobs that were really demanding, and they were all, not only just physically demanding, also like the responsibility. They were just basically lived that role, and I just simply, I don't know if I never sat down and talked to him about it, but I mean, in retrospect, it'd probably been interesting if I had that kind of a connection to ask him, do you forego sex because you're just like so caught up with this, or is it because you never have a lot? You have some. Now, some people would say asexuality typically is associated with a malfunctioning in the human. I mean, it's like because of not enough hormones, not enough, you know, erectile dysfunction, you know, painful intercourse in the female or something like that. You typically, so they would say they become asexual, but that's not your experience.
Yeah, I mean. It's I don't think we really know what causes someone to be whatever sexual orientation they are. I mean, some people think you're born that way, and a lot of people are saying that about asexuality in the same way they say it now often about you know, gay or lesbian people, and then other people say no, it's you know, environment or a combination. And I think there was some new article, someone said sexuality is fluid. I don't think we have to know whether we're born that way or whether it's experiences or both. Maybe people have a tendency in one direction and their life experience causes them to, you know, causes them to go more in that direction. But I don't think it really matters. Like, you know, your political views are a result of your life experience, but that doesn't mean they're less than a part of you. Or, you know, your religion, you choose your religion, or your life experiences guide you to a particular religion, but once you're that religion, you're that religion. So I don't think it really, I don't think that it's any less real if it has some environmental influences too. So, but maybe it is mostly inborn, or maybe it's somewhat environmental. I don't really know.
See, I agree on that, because I mean, I've known some people who I can actually see, gays, you know, gay males, and I can see some would have the stereotypical behavior associated, you know, with the, you know, the very feminine hand gestures, and, you know, and almost like relating too much with a female. I've definitely known quite a few that would fall into that category. You can see maybe they over-identified with their, you know, their mothers or the females in their lives or something like that, and they took on that role. But then there's other ones who I've known other gays who are very well, I guess you'd say they belong to the bear club, they call them. You know, they look at, they're bearded, they're muscular, they look like, you know, the typical slob guy on the street.
And so, then there was a Saturday Night Live character years ago, the effeminate heterosexual. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that. There was some guy with all the effeminate gestures that would make someone think he was stereotypically gay, but he wasn't. You know, so it's just, you never know.
So I've known guys like that. One of my friend's dads, I was growing up with him in the 70s. Mm-hmm. If you actually go by the stereotypical behaviors, he demonstrated pretty much all of them. Mm-hmm. He wasn't. Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, he never came out of it and said he was homosexual or gay or whatever. And he, you know, he basically lived the life of a straight man. He had several children and lived a pretty successful life, to my knowledge. So, I mean, you know, I think that basically, though, I think the biggest problem is, I think going back to, is probably the I mean, I think it's the law. I think it's the government. I also think it's people's I mean, I think it is a very standard case of like not reacting hostilely to the things that they don't understand.
Right.
And see, I've always been puzzled by that, because I mean, somebody's gay, unless they're really trying to force you into a sexual role or something like that, it's against your programming or whatever. I never had an issue with that, because I figured, you know, you want to do that, fine. I mean, you know, you like a certain type of cheese, somebody else likes another type of cheese. Okay, fine, you'll go your way. I mean, see, I guess I'm basically a person who doesn't like to try to challenge somebody else's choices. I'm just going to I'll just say we agree to disagree and go on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the anger and stuff, I never understood. I mean, like wanting to kill gay people or to go after somebody who was I mean, what I always saw surprising, though, when I was in college, I took a human sexuality course, and they're mentioning in the literature that there was like this hostility amongst the gay male community in the United States about people who are calling themselves bisexual. And they said said nobody can be bisexual. They just don't have the guts to admit that they're gay. And I find that kind of strange from a group who has been oppressed, who has been faced violence and persecution for being who they are, being so vehemently on the other side, saying that these people can't be who they say they are. So I mean, I was like, and the thing has become the politicization of it. I mean, and that's like I was always like, step back, because I basically knew who I was. I mean, all my life I knew that I liked girls. I mean, I never had through this period where I thought girls had cooties or anything. I mean, and my friends did, and I'd say, oh, that's okay. I'll risk it, guys. I'll save you from these girls, okay? I mean, I'd rather, but I mean, I was doing guy things like, jumping off of things and, fighting, and so, the stuff is considered stereotypical male. But I was always puzzled by somebody who, when they were doing something, as long as they weren't trying to force you into it, it's basically, I was like kind of a slob attitude about things. It's like, as long as they're not trying to force you to do it, who cares? Go on with your life. I mean, and I guess maybe there was a role, like, back when I was in junior high, if one of my friends was, back then, people didn't come out of being gay. They didn't come out. Very few did. I mean, they had the guts to do that. But I mean, let's face it, I got to be honest. If one of my friends I was hanging around with admitted that he preferred males, I would shun him to some degree when I was around other people. I would play that role with peer pressure. I admit that I possibly never came up, but I got to be honest. I think that would be a possibility. But now, see, asexual behavior, in your case, basically is, I mean, there's obviously people you've met, males, or we never discussed this, but males or females that you felt charming, you were drawn to, though.
Yeah, that's why I do discuss that in my book. I guess I have a style of love where I get very drawn to people, and it's a platonic kind of thing. They're people I strongly admire, or have a certain sense. They seem like very stable people, or they're very accomplished people, or there's just something about them, about the energy that they exude, or something about their manner. I just really get drawn to them, but it's a platonic thing. I don't picture marrying them. I don't have, fantasies of, I just, basically what I want is to, get to know them better, spend more time with them or something, and it's not like I'm picturing, whatever you're supposed to picture in some Hollywood movie ending. That has never been my fantasy of what you're supposed to do. There were always picture I couldn't even imagine anything like that with. So
yeah, so another thing is too, I'm not going to put you on the spot, and if you don't want to answer the question, because I mean, I don't like coming up with scripts. I mean, we're talking, and I definitely come up with this. You alluded to in a couple other interviews we've done about your harp playing and stuff, that you have a mom and a stepmom, so obviously your parents are no longer together. Could that have been like maybe you saw your parents' relationship go that way, go through divorce, that you said basically I want to stay away from that?
I mean, you never know. My parents divorced when I was in college, so I was already older when they actually divorced. I mean, it's possible there was something about the marriage but I don't know. I think I was really close to both of my parents. And I still am, and I'm not sure. I play the harp at weddings. I think weddings are beautiful. I actually don't personally have any aversion towards marriage, so I don't think I got a bad vision of marriage from that. One thing that, like I said, I thought maybe it was my sexuality was damaged in some way. When I was very young, there were a couple of situations of like older teenagers doing things that were inappropriate sexually with me. They weren't adults, it's like I don't have any animosity towards, just kids can be messed up, and, I hope they're living good lives now. But, there were some not many, but like, just a couple of experiences that I can point to that were, not good things. But a lot of people have experiences like that. Sometimes it makes them become more sexualized. So, I mean, it's possible that, someone else having the same experiences wouldn't have reacted the way I reacted, or maybe I would have turned out this way regardless, even without any bad experiences. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't know if you've on Facebook. There's a group called Men Going Their Own Way, and they don't accept women's requests to join, but But it's basically the whole thing is it's some guys are the women hater. They're misogynistic, and some guys who post that, and they're very bitter. You can tell that. But a lot of guys basically just think it's kind of a form of tyranny to be tied to the great paying jobs, so you can have the great looking wife with the great looking kids in the great looking suburbs, having a great looking house with the great looking dog, and they just form of tyranny. Basically, a lot like the feminists of the 60s and the 50s, 60s, 70s would. I mean. And they're basically saying they opt out. They have their pursuits, they have their careers, they have a circle of friends, and they're happy with that. They're content with that because maybe they were burnt by a previous relationship. Maybe an ex-wife got too much of their hard-earned dollars, or they're nicely, one of those great-looking homes is now handed over to the woman. And there is, there's much as like the rapes happen amongst females, and the bad stuff that happens from women. The assumption of guilt is there. If a man's accused of something, he just has to be accused, and his life is pretty much ruined. It's like, so a lot of guys are reacting to that in this organization. A lot of the postings are concerning that. So I definitely think that it's like, I think it's a topic that's got to be. I think I'm more curious about it. I've never given asexuality a real strong consideration because basically it wasn't usually considered somebody. The literature I was reading at the time, and this was like in the 80s when I was in this class, basically say asexuality could be because of bad experiences, could be because of this, but also the idea of sublimation, where you pour your second libidinous energy into career paths or your other roles. A lot of priests or people in the what they call the religious, and say different cultures, Buddhism, Christianity. I don't see the requirement there in Islam, but there was a requirement, a lot of them, to be celibate. And a lot of people had no issue with that. A lot of did have issue with it, struggled with it.
Asexuality is actually different from celibacy. I'm just realizing I haven't defined it yet. I don't know if I can exactly define it, but it's not having sexual attractions to other people. Like you said, you can have emotional attractions to other people, but you're not sexually attracted to other people. It doesn't mean you don't have sexual feelings, just that you're, you don't have an urge to have sex with anyone. And, what was I going to say? Oh, this is, so celibacy, I guess you have, you're a normal functioning heterosexual guy or heterosexual, or no, it doesn't have to be heterosexual. It could be homosexual. But the idea is you're a sexual person, but you're making a conscious decision not to have sex. So you're depriving yourself, or maybe I shouldn't say depriving. You're just making a decision to refrain from something that you would ordinarily want to do, or that you naturally would want to do. But asexual people, they don't want to have sex, so they're not really depriving themselves. It's like if I don't like onions, so it would be like if I don't eat onions because I don't like onions. It's not that I'm, it's not that I'm depriving myself of something.
So yeah, it's the thing is I think we've been over-sexualized in our culture to some extent. We have to coach it, like, are you gay, are you straight, are you bi? That option you're talking about, asexuality, is usually not on the table, because if you bring that up, they're saying, well, maybe you should go see a doctor. I've met people who when I was in junior high and high school, I had these, I was drawn to these girls that I, totally out of my league, it's like that was my thing. It was like I always liked the ones that I couldn't get. But I had friends that were normal-looking guys, normal weight ranges. They weren't fat. They could have got girls, but they just didn't. But they weren't gay, and nobody could accuse them of being gay because they didn't demonstrate any kind of leaning towards that, or what we used to consider the stereotypical behaviors or mannerisms of that. And I was always surprised. I would ask them, they said, well, yeah, I just don't care. And I always thought, well, you should go to see a doctor. We're adolescents. We're all supposed to be at raging hormones. We're all supposed to be getting refused and getting frustrated. You're supposed to be doing something like that you know, in your privacy of your own room. But you got to dealing with that way. But these guys just have any, you know, and they would actually admit they never were with a girl. They didn't care to be. That's something they didn't care about. And I was surprised. There's only a couple of them, but I always thought that was kind of shocking almost. I mean, I was like, maybe you should go get help. Maybe you know, and because it basically it's like these slots we want to put people in: gay, straight, bi, you know, or asexual. Oh, that's way off there, you know.
And with some people, it actually does take a while. That was one thing I did read, that some people it takes a while for their sex drive to kick in, so they don't know. You know, they might think that they're asexual, and then you know, maybe if they're a teenager, but then in their early 20s they'll have some kind of sexual relationship, and it changes their mind. So you know, especially for young people, I don't want anyone to be in a hurry to say, oh, I'm asexual, and just completely, you know, give up and, you know, say that's all there is. Or with anyone, actually, you know, your life experiences, you know, none of us knows what life holds for us, and I don't think anyone should feel like they have to be locked into any particular identity. This is, I find it a useful way of thinking about myself right now. You know, it's a positive identity. It's not just that I'm not doing what other people are doing. You know, it's like, this is what I am doing. This is who I am. It's not just an absence of, you know, of an identity. It is an identity. Oh, and one thing I just want to mention, you were asking about discrimination or oppression. That's another reason I wrote the book, you know, apart from the fact that I just like to write. I think it's important for people not to feel like they're the only one who's like this, like they're alone, because one of the things I did read, one of the articles that I really liked on the subject talked about the sense of alienation that asexual people often feel. You mentioned alienation and some, you know, a string of other things, but, you know, feeling like you're not part of what everyone else is doing can actually lead to a lot of despair, and you know, can lead to things like, you know, drinking, or you know, people being very unhappy with themselves, or and so, you know, people shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel like you're alone, and you know, I think it's important for people to know that there are other people like that too, and it can, you know, can be very empowering.
You know, Laurel, I really wish this, you know, book could sell for you, and you know, of course, because that's, you know, you're an author, you want to see it go, you know, people get it in their hands and read it, and I don't think it's just a profit-driven thing though for you, and I would like to see this actually down the road. I mean, this develop, I mean, into a bigger work, more maybe we could see if we could, you know, but I mean, I'd like to see people who are areas. I know a couple of people who are in like sexual counselors and people who do a sex therapist. And I'd like to see maybe weigh in on this topic myself. I mean, because I think it's one of these options. It's not options. It's just one of those things that's been there. It's got to be there. So probably since we crawled out of caves and started, you know, or whenever we started writing about stuff, I'm sure there's people who were asexual, or what we'd call asexual now. And it's, you know, basically, I'm a curious person. I mean, especially when it comes to the social sciences. You know, I think that some people mock the social sciences, and myself included. I'll call it the pseudosciences, but I think it's because what is so hard about the social sciences is that it's not so easy to quantify stuff. It's not so, the subject matter doesn't like to be pigeonholed, stereotyped, or categorized. And you know, let's face it, I can see the idea. I've talked to somebody just a few weeks ago about the idea of fluidity, and you know, I mean, and sexuality is something that in other cultures wasn't so hard written in stone. Wasn't written in stone. I mean, you know, like Romans, though, in the Roman world and the Greek world, they always, some people want to say homosexuality is why they accept it, for example. Really, it wasn't. Is why they accepted, because they still had families who produced offspring for the empires or for their countries. But another thing is too, when a person who was wanted to, like, they wanted to skewer somebody, they would call the male, they'd call him a bugger of boys. So, I mean, there wasn't the acceptance that some activists want people to believe there was. There wasn't. They think it's just a Christian or Judeo-Christian bias. There are other cultures that had even more stricter prohibitions against homosexual behavior, for example. I just want to get that in, because the misconception, they want they want to throw the baby out with bathwater, you know, for Western culture. And the Western culture wasn't the worst case when it comes to the persecution of gays. Or other ones out there far worse. I mean, castration was allowed and stuff. Yes. Where basically in the West, it was basically ostracization. You know, and let's face it, even cultures that they allege were so accepting of it weren't really that accepting. So it's always been I think basically it goes back to what would happen if society goes this way. I think that's a thought now about the gay marriage thing. What would happen if this is more permissible or more accepted?
Yeah, so, I think it's pretty new for the world in general, as you said, not just for Judeo-Christian culture. For the whole world, I think this is a fairly new idea that homosexuality is okay, and that gay marriage is acceptable. And
I'd definitely say it's good because, let's face it, the human societies were created around families. I don't want to sound like a blithering conservative. I am a conservative, but I'm not a blithering one. But that's inescapable. Right. Basically, it was a family. Then they belonged to a clan or a tribe. Then the clan, and the tribe eventually evolved into what we call the modern day states because they were unified for better protection. And they were supposedly had some kind of benefits derived from belonging to the larger group other than your own families. But let's face it, all that hinged upon having a large enough families out there, provide for the families, provide for the elderly, provide for the young, and also to provide for the culture to be continued. So I mean that's the concern, and those concerns cannot be basically legislated away. They really can't. So there's going to be a backlash, I see, about the gay marriage. I think there's going to be some unintended consequences. But I mean, it's basically, I'm a libertarian. I think the state should be out of human relationships, period. The only thing they can do is honor contracts. I think that's for enforcement of contracts. And that's basically where they would come into in marriage. Because who's going to take care of offspring? We got the front of the court system. I never heard a pleasant front of the court system story. So I mean, obviously we're still not dealing with this stuff on the heterosexual level. So I mean, so adding to this, I'm very, very reluctant, to add to the mix already what I think of existing problems. But I mean, I think that goes back to my statement earlier is not being, I'm not backing on that. It is a politicization of it. It is bringing the government in that's causing the problems.
Yeah, it's not exactly related, but slightly related. I just wanted to say, I think I talked about this on the earlier show I was on with you. That I've only recently come around even on gay marriage, because for a long time I was actually diametrically opposed to it because, and I think it was partly because I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought my own sexuality was damaged, so I thought that other people who weren't fitting into what society thought they should do, I thought they must be damaged too. I thought that, sexuality, can be a damaged thing, and that, there's something wrong with them, instead of having their pride parades or whatever, they should be getting therapy and getting help or whatever. But it's a much more liberating idea of just accepting yourself and accepting your sexuality, and as long as you're being true to yourself and you're not hurting anyone else, you're not inflicting your sexuality on someone who's not able to consent or doesn't consent, then you should be at peace with who you are.
Yes, I had a friend who was in the Army, and one of his friends tested positive for the random drug test for drugs. And they were taking they wanted his sister goes to counseling and therapy and all that stuff. He goes, I don't have a drug problem. You got a problem with me doing drugs. And the guy wasn't failing any of his performance, requirements. He was doing well. Just a random blood test or urine test showed that he had marijuana in it. And maybe that's a flippant attitude to take or try and turn it around. But basically, as much as I dislike drugs, there's some people out there who can use drugs and have a functioning lifestyle. It's hard. It's difficult. There's probably some strain on their relationships, obviously. But at some point, when can a person make choose for options that we might not agree with, but we just don't want to we don't allow ourselves to try to beat them into submission of some form. I mean, so at some point that is about sexuality. I mean, being human is already, when you're this infant, as soon as you start articulating something, somebody's finding a way of trying to draw you out, trying to put you in a different category, not to like you, hate you even, or, so I mean, it's like, and that's mind-boggling. Just realize that you're so vulnerable. All of us are. All of us are vulnerable. You remember, we always depend on the kindness of strangers. We all do.
Right,
we all do.
For sure.
We're at mercy of somebody's allowing us for having our idiosyncrasies. I mean, it's like, and I think people being demonized or vilified just one or two things that hasn't affected somebody else or impacted on somebody else is probably just mean-spiritedness.
Right. Yeah, people always find some reason to be mean. Like if it's not your sexuality, maybe it's the way you dress, or you're too tall, or you're overweight or underweight, or whatever. Anyone who's different, faces discrimination, or people just being mean to them.
So, and I'm not a person I'm not like a hippie, I don't believe in embracing everybody and hugging them, and, I'm not like that. I hate to say this, a lot of people will find criticism of this about all this stuff, but basically, I really don't, I'm so self-absorbed and so self-interested, or maybe selfish in some people's, I don't really care what other people are doing, as long as they're not bothering me. And it's like, I think that's a better way to go, because I'm not trying to plot their downfall. Mm-hmm. I don't really care.
Right.
I can't find it in my life to care who's sleeping with whom. All I know is, I'm an unsuccessful heterosexual. But I got hope that someday somebody's going to be, some woman that I really find attractive allows me into her life. But I'm not going to go around bashing somebody who's given up on it, or I didn't, like my friends and I would say, we'd see two gay guys, we knew they're obviously gay because hold on to each other or whatever. Hey, fine, there's two more women out there we might get a shot at. The whole idea of asexuality, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around, because it's like, people want to be intimate with other people. It seems like, the physical intimacy is a draw. There's some kind of real expectation or desire for that. We try to push that aside, or we can't act out on it all the time, but that desire seems to be there for most people.
Okay, asexuals, it doesn't mean you don't like to be touched. Different people have different kinds of touch they like. Some people, like being hugged, or... I didn't define the term asexuals. I defined that aromantic means someone who doesn't experience romantic love. And I can love people, but I don't love people in a romantic way. But some asexuals do. Some asexuals have, their emotional life is just like anyone else. They get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and form a couple relationship, but they just, the asexual person wouldn't want to have sex. And, I guess hopefully they'd have a partner who's okay with that, maybe even another asexual partner, but they would still have a romantic relationship. But they're also aromantic asexuals. There are different kinds of asexuals. So some are, just romantic asexuals, but aromantic asexual doesn't experience romantic love and wouldn't be in a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So, they might like being hugged by a friend or someone, or but they wouldn't want to, engaging in kissing, probably, unless maybe a peck on the cheek or something. But but the romantic, the asexuals who are not aromantic, they would probably engage in a lot of the kinds of touching that any other couple would, just not the sex.
I know. I could see this book though evolving. I can see it get much more fleshed out in different editions. I really could. Would that be something you're open to, or do you just want to be a standalone thing, or could you see it?
Well, it's a standalone thing for now. I might write more on the topic later as other ideas come to me. I don't really know, so I go with where the inspiration takes me. Okay, folks out there, asexuality. I don't know if you've ever even considered the idea, or not the idea. It's not like something you're proposing to embrace. It's just basically it's something exists, and it is what, as they say, it is what it is. Right. So anyway, where could people get your book? It's on Amazon.com, either as a paperback, like this when you see here, or it's also available on Kindle. The Kindle edition actually has a different cover. It has the same words, but just a different design on the cover. But it's the same book, so And as I said, it's pretty short, so you can read it all in one sitting if you want, and hopefully you like it. Now, say somebody reads the book, or is relating to this interview, and they want to contact you. Would you welcome them to contact you through your Facebook page, or do you have another page? Sure, yeah, they can. Yeah, they can contact me through Facebook page, or also, I mentioned in the book, there are some Facebook groups, Asexuality. There's also Aromantic Asexuality, or Aromantic Talk. So I mentioned some of the Facebook groups, and they could contact me through those Facebook groups. I'm a member of all of them too. So.
Well, I think that's like I think it's like interesting that this kind of stuff is emerging. I think it's like as much as people want to mock Caitlyn Jenner, or will have an issue with it. Maybe he's bringing it home that maybe something to struggle that a lot of us want to be dismissible. We don't want to deal with that. I mean, it's just something not on our radar. Basically, right. It's another, and we've looked at so many things that are being challenged, or so many things that we've accepted as par for the course, that we don't like to see that challenge, and basically are exasperated. But I mean, maybe this gives us pause. All this gives us pause to say that there's a lot more out there than we've even considered. And maybe we shouldn't be so reactionary when we first hear about it.
Right. Yeah. Very well said.
So anyway, people, check out the love and sex life of Aromantic Asexual. And Laurel Federbush, like she said, you can get this book at through Amazon. And I think this like to be in it. Maybe we can use a springboard for maybe a larger volume. Maybe maybe people out there who are sex therapists or psychologists, weigh in on this. I think it's a worthwhile subject.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.